Hi guys, welcome back to the Bible.
A podcast where we take your questions and our questions and go back to the Bible and see what God has to say about them.
I'm Julieta.
I'm Lisette.
And I'm Kaylin, and I'm your host for today. And today's topic, it's a little easy, maybe not, maybe, I don't know. But it's all about having faith like a child and what that actually means. So my first question, which they actually don't know about this question.
We don't know any of the
from us for
questions.
whatever reason.
Yeah, because I want to take you by surprise a little bit. Okay? I want you guys to think of 3 words that describe a child. Like
Innocent.
Okay.
Happy.
Okay.
Innocent. Happy. Innocent. Happy.
One more.
Okay.
I can't think of another one.
Innocent, happy.
I was gonna say like energetic, but not all children are
Majority
different.
of the time they're energetic.
Yeah.
Like the average
Once you're
kid
in like
is
toddler stage and stuff like that.
The
Yeah.
average kid is energetic. What about you?
Yeah. Okay. Well, she took the word I wanted to use. Okay, playful. They typically want to play, learn new things.
Oh, that's good.
I was gonna say joyful, but depending on your kid, they're not always joyful.
Majority of the average kid is very joyful.
Yeah.
Unless you tell them no. Okay, anyway. Yeah.
Do you have games on your phone?
No. And they get so mad. Okay. What was the word I used? Playful. Careless. I guess they're like they don't really. I mean, yeah, they're caring for like the people around them, but like
They're not very like.
They don't have problems.
care.
Stress free.
Yeah, they're stress free.
Yeah.
I like that.
I guess creative. I feel like when you're younger, you have more of an open mind to things, especially when you don't really know what's going on. I was gonna say observant, but not all kids really care about what's going on around them.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's true.
creative.
The 3 words that I thought of, which I wrote them down because I feel like it kind of encompasses our podcast a little bit. So the 3 words I had written down was humble, loving, and funny. These little kids, like whether they make a joke or not, they're just funny.
Like what's that one show where they like played like the funniest America's Funniest Videos, AFV.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's always kids like falling
Majority
or
of
hitting
it
their
is
head.
majority of it is kids, right?
Yeah.
So there's a verse in the Bible which is like what everybody takes this topic out of, and it's in Matthew 18:2-5, and it says, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, and whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me." And like this isn't like it's kind of a big deal, like having faith like a child, and like what does that mean? And I was literally listening to a podcast this morning, and the question that they started off was, which like it kind of like was like, wait a minute, and it was, why does God tell us to have faith like a little boogery, like disgusting little kid? Because kids sometimes like they're not disgusting, but they usually have like boogers, or usually like crazy, like, you know, like why does God want us to model a kid?
I feel like kids like when you think of a kid, they don't really know much of what's going on in the world, and typically like your typical little kid going to church, they're excited to go learn, they're excited for their Sabbath school classes and seeing their kids, but like they're excited for the songs, they're excited for the children's story and stuff like that. So I feel like when you look at a child who's engaged or trying to engage in like the godly things around them, they're always so happy. They're always so excited. They're always so like, yay. Like, even though they don't truly understand the meaning behind a lot of the stuff, they're always so excited and like motivated to go. Like, you don't ever see a kid like crying because they had to go to church. Like, they're always excited to see their friends, go to the children's story. There's a bunch of stuff that's like they're excited for. So I feel like when he says that we should be like children, I feel like we should be excited to learn more things, because children are typically excited to learn because they don't know anything. And like us, when we're so old and we know everything, and like when we're older, like the world kind of takes over. Like you have work, you have school, you have all these necessities. So like children, they don't really have to worry about any of that. So like when they're at church, unless they're like getting bored in the sermon, but when they're in Sabbath school, they have their undivided attention, and all like the Sabbath school teacher has their undivided attention. So I feel like when they say that we should be like children, we should like kind of forget about the chores that we have and be excited like to go to church, be excited to learn about God, and be excited to like learn something new, because we don't know everything. And I feel like once you get older, you meet a lot of people who think that they know everything, but then
I like how you
they
brought
fail
that
to
up.
remember that they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how you brought that up. I was gonna say, like children are understanding. Like if you explain something to them, they're not gonna fight you over it. They're not gonna like be ignorant to like learning something new, like how you're saying.
Yeah.
And so I feel like sometimes like it's like we're fighting with God because he's like telling us something, but we think we know better.
Yeah.
And so I think children are like, I'll do it, you know? Like they're more like open-minded, I would say. They haven't like developed enough like necessity to
Knowledge,
fight. Yeah. Like they're just I feel like
They're just there. Like
exactly. Sure.
they're like, okay, like let's just do it.
Right.
Like there's 3 specific points that I wanted to like specifically talk about because and like you guys have actually mentioned them because like a kid doesn't have like obviously there's pros and cons to this. Kids have really great things and then some bad things, like they're like they don't know a lot, like they don't have knowledge, like sometimes they don't know how to express themselves. But there's 3 main things that I wanted to talk about, and one of them was that they're driven. Like, have you ever seen a kid throw a temper tantrum? Like they don't care who's around them, they don't care what's going on, they will cry until they get what they want. And like
oh, we know that.
Like you're just like at my store, I hear children like screaming, crying. And there's a kid who comes in asking about the same toy, and he always cries and throws a little tantrum, and I feel bad. But
I mean, like it's sometimes it's like okay, like you're crying unnecessarily. Like you know, like a parent sometimes is trying to parent them, like tell them to do something. Like they're trying to teach them, but at the same time they're very driven. And I feel like a lot of times we as like humans and us like we get sidetracked or like we just like forget what the main goal is, and then we just let the outside like block our view, and then we forget what the goal is. And I feel like children, like they don't care what's getting thrown out their way. Like they will get what they want. If they're hungry, they will cry until they're hungry. They will go into the pantry, get the food. Like kids are like so like they're go-getters.
yeah,
like
they're gonna get what they want.
exactly, and they'll try every method. Like I don't know, like I know me as a kid, I would like if my parents told me, hey, like you can't eat after a certain time, like it's gonna upset your stomach. I didn't care. I would go into the kitchen hidden, and I would get what I wanted. And like this, it's a good and a bad thing because sometimes our temptations are telling us to get something, and then we're very driven to get towards this one thing. But if our main goal is like heaven and being like Jesus, we should be driven towards that goal, right? Like we shouldn't let like things cloud our view. And I feel like that like it's a very important thing that sometimes we forget about kids. Go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like the same way, like, kids will do everything in their power to get what they, like, want. We should do the same thing, like, do everything in our power to build a good relationship with God. And to, like, not think from a child standpoint, because obviously children don't really know much. But, like, even from your own personal view, think like you're a kid. Like, be driven to grasp a good relationship with God. Be driven to learn more about God, all that kind of stuff. Because if kids can find a way to get what they want, why can't we find a way to connect with Jesus?
And it's not like not only just like God and like obviously our main goal is to be like Jesus, but also your goals. Like it's important to be driven towards your goals and like know what you want to do. And like even if you don't know like specifically what you want to do in life, like have that general direction and be like, I'm gonna do everything in my like strength, everything I can possibly do to go get this one thing, to go do this and be driven towards it. And like growing up, like being a college student, like sometimes like yes, I want to get my degree, yes, I want to do this, but sitting down to do homework it takes
annoying.
so much out of me. Not like so much, but like when you don't feel like it, when you're tired, when you just want to like lay down, take a nap, but you have assignments due, like it's very easy to get sidetracked and blinded by things that aren't important. So like you just gotta stay driven, stay like focused.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is like children are driven, and so we should be driven in the Christian aspect and not like in the temptations and bad aspect. But growing up, I was very understanding. Like I feel like now that like Helen's like, you know, she's like, getting a little older, but like when she was a little younger, she would like. I remember this one time. Oh my gosh, it's so bad. We were like at a plaza, and it was like we were like with my mom's friend, and mom wasn't there. She's like at like a Christian concert, and so we stayed with my mom's friend, and we were just walking around, and there was like this little store where they sold the dogs, and she fell on the floor crying, crying, like yelling, like screaming. Yeah, those.
And I love
yelling,
those.
screaming, like on the ground, like horrible.
Aww.
And we didn't know what to do. And like my mom's friend was just like, what do I do? And so big sister's supposed to step up. She does not listen to me.
Aww.
And this random lady had to buy the dog for her. It was like $35.
Oh my gosh.
Why
And
are
then
they selling that dog for $35?
And then she lost it like the next day.
Oh my.
Oh, Helen.
I have one of those.
No, it's so bad.
Oh my goodness.
But for the verse, I was looking at it, and it talks about like, whoever takes that lowly position and becomes like this child is the greatest of the greatest, or in the kingdom of heaven. And that reminds me of like, you have to be last to be first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I feel like how you were saying, like children don't have much understanding. Like people like they think that children are like not smart. Or like I feel like a lot of time we look at children, we're like, no, you know, they're just children. Like it doesn't really matter.
They still have so much to learn.
But they take so much in, and sometimes like you hear them saying stuff, and you hear them, and it's because they replay what they hear.
Yeah.
And so that reminds me of like we have to be like God and like replay everything we do.
Yeah.
Because they see something and immediately they want to like reflect that. They want to say that. They want to walk a certain way, like how they see their parents talk, they talk that way. And so I feel like that also like reminds me of like we have to be like God and kind of like look at him as a parent and be like, you know, not only guide me, but like I want to like reflect you. And then another thing is like, that reminds me, you have to be the last to be the first. Not necessarily like, children are serving, but like that just reminds me of that. Like you have to take the lowly position of it.
And I feel like going back to what you said about God being our father, like there's many faces to God. And like sometimes he's our friend, sometimes he's like our like mentor, sometimes he's our father. And like I don't know if you've seen like the little meme of like there's like a kid with like a book in his like lap, and he's just grabbing the book and putting it on his head. Have you not seen it?
What?
Oh, okay. I'll send it to you so you can add it in the video. Okay, but like it's like the kid is like going like this, and then he's like instead of like studying or like reading, he's like trying to put all the words into his head. And I feel like in a way, like instead of like just like we should study the word, and we should try to imitate what God is doing for us. And I feel like what you were saying, like a lot of kids are very susceptible. They hear, they see, like they take everything in, and like instead of taking in temptation and like taking in like what the world is trying to tell us, like we should be like taking in what the word of God is saying and like what God is telling us, and like trying to act like Jesus. I feel like that's what like kind of what you were trying to say is like we should be able to like get everything in. I don't know how to like say it without like I don't know how to say it properly, but I hope that made sense.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, so the next thing, the second point I wanted to make is that they're trustworthy. And like there's a difference between having blind trust and like just trusting. I feel like kids a lot of times like they look up to parents. They look up to like the people around them, and if I had a kid and I told them, hey, like, I need you to do this, they're going to be like, okay, I'll go do that. And, like, yes, sometimes kids disobey. Like, kids get not distracted, but they just, like,
do their own thing.
They still have trust. They still trust in, like, their role models. They trust in, like, the people around them to, like teach them the right things, and they know that they're not going to be led astray. And I feel like a lot of times, like, we know that God has a better way for us, but we don't trust him. Like, he tells us, hey, like, I'm going to do this, this, and this for you, and then we don't trust that he's going to do it.
Or you think that what you have is better.
Or that, like, I think I'm going to do something better than what God has planned for me. And I feel like that's where, like, things get tricky. Like, things get really tricky. And adults, or, like, people who are not kids, like, they get really skeptical. Like, they don't trust. Like, they don't just like be like, okay, like I trust this person because they have done this, this, and this for me. I'm just gonna trust that what they said is gonna happen in the future is gonna happen. Like a lot of times I myself have found myself questioning God and questioning why things are happening, why do I feel this way, why is it like why when instead I should just trust.
Yeah.
And I feel like kids are very like, I don't know, like they're so trustworthy, and the way that they make friends in 5 seconds,
No, yeah.
They're trustworthy or they trust?
they trust, not trustworthy.
No, but
they
it can
trust.
still be both.
I
yeah.
agree.
Like kids, they're very flexible. Like they're they're chill, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way that kids make friends, the way that kids aren't afraid to reach out to other people, which like ties into my third point, but we'll get to that. But the way that they can just meet someone in 5 seconds and just like, hey, you're my best friend now. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I feel like us as Christians, like we should start taking up that way of thinking.
Like, yeah, that courage to just come up to people. Well, like with kids, they're so quick to like take in, like you were saying, and trust whatever they see on the internet, whatever they see their parents doing, whatever they see people around them doing. Because all these people, especially, well, the kids now, even with the internet, all these things seem like trustful resources. So these kids they trust everybody, which I guess sometimes can be a bad thing, but we're looking at it from a positive perspective. Kids are really quick to trust the role models in their life, and like the people, obviously most of them don't really understand like, oh, this is what God's doing for me. They're like, a lot of them don't really understand that, like to an extent that we would, because we're older. But if we took the chance to like trust God the same way that like us as children trusted our parents and our siblings and like our teachers, imagine like how amazing our relationship with God would be.
Mm-hmm.
But like once you get older, it's so hard to like not choose the physical things and the worldly things, because it's the stuff you're seeing. So and like we talked about this in what was it, like a couple episodes ago. I think it was only Josiah. It's so hard to like fully stand in some, like obviously, hold on, I don't know how to word this where it's like a chore. It's hard to trust God because you don't see him. That's why it's so important to look at it from a child's perspective. Like they trust their parents. When you trust God from a child's perspective, it's like it's not as difficult because children trust everything. Children believe in everything. And it's like when we look at it from a child's perspective, oh, any water. From a child's perspective, it's so much easier to trust God's plan because children are so quick to trust.
It's like, it's funny that you say like they're so quick to trust. Like children will believe in Santa. They'll believe in the Tooth Fairy. They'll believe in anything that you tell them because it's coming from someone that they trust.
Have you heard of the Cuban rat?
Yes.
My sister came from Cuba and her daughter, I was about to say my niece, lost her tooth. And I was like, oh, is it Tooth Fairy? And she was like, no, el ratón Peri. And I was like, oh.
El ratoncito.
I was like, yeah, I'm going to bring him from Cuba for you.
But yeah, like it's very cute too to see how like
and they're
kids
so
are like
innocent. They're like, oh yes, Santa's gonna give me a gift if I do good this year.
Like sometimes I kind of wish I was a kid again and like could just have like that blind trust. And like growing up, like I have had experience like people breaking my trust. I've experienced like what it feels like to be let down, and like it's hard to like be able to trust people again and trust willingly and freely and like openly. But again, like, what harm am I doing in myself and not trusting someone?
Yeah.
I don't know if that made sense, but, like, someone that I look up to, someone that I know that is, like, has been, like, based on what they've done, like, I know that they're doing good, like, and I know that they're only going to do good for me, like, and not harm me. Like, why can't I trust them? Why can't I just, like, be like, okay, you got it. Like, I believe in you. I know that what you're going to do, like, I don't know if that makes sense, but, like.
No, yeah.
Especially, like, in terms of God. Like, God doesn't have, like, Jeremiah 29:11 says, I have plans for you, plans not to harm you. Like, that's one of the main points of the thing. Like, I'm not going to do anything to willingly harm you. I have something planned for you that is going to benefit you. And even if it doesn't seem like it in the moment, just trust me. And that's so hard to do.
Right? And so touching back on what you mentioned, the getting let down. So we all know like what getting let down feels like. Like it's a negative feeling. It's somebody who didn't meet up to what you were asking them, like expecting of them. And I feel like we're so quick to assume that, like, well, when I was younger, so quick to assume that God's letting us down. Because the feeling of being let down is so negative that the second we ask for something from God and we're getting negative things happening in our life, it feels like God's letting us down or God's not meeting up to our expectations. But, like, and when we look at it that way, it's like, what am I even doing? Like, God's not doing what I'm asking him for. Like, all this stuff. And that's when that like negative mindset comes in, because kids, like, yeah, they feel let down, but then you can just make it up to them really fast.
Or they get up, like, kids get hurt, and 2 seconds later they're jumping and
they're
running
crying
again.
about it, and then they get a little Band-Aid and a kiss, and like, oh, okay, I'm all done.
Or like they sing a little song and they're
Yeah.
fine again. Like they like the way that kids recover, and like they just shake things off. Like sometimes we should model that, and like
Yeah.
it has to do a little bit with Forgive and Forget, which go watch that
Yeah.
episode if you haven't. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. But the way that kids are just so like okay, like I'll do it.
Right.
Like you tell them to like come with me. I'm gonna like we're gonna go do this and this. Like okay,
Yeah.
I'll go. Like they don't like. I don't know how to explain it. The way that they're just so willingly.
They're so innocent. They don't even know like what happened a couple minutes later.
And I feel like sometimes we're so caught up with like the consequences, whether they're good or bad of a decision, that we forget about the
Yeah.
trusting aspect. We forget about the aspect of like I'm just gonna do it. If that
Yeah,
makes sense.
and we also
Or-
get so stuck on like how that felt when someone let us down or someone hurt us or us getting hurt by our own consequences, that we forget that like part of this ends up being part of God's plan in some way. Like every decision we make plays out in the big picture He has for us. So we're so quick to get stuck on, oh, God's not doing this for us. We're getting let down by the people around us. God's letting me down. But then we fail to realize that like that's part of like His bigger picture. So we let those feelings linger. We let it take over. We get upset at God. We get upset at those around us. And then we're not even like children anymore. We're just like stuck in this loop of feeling negative, like negative emotions.
Yeah.
But children, they get let down. They get a lollipop, and then they're fine.
They're fine. Like
yeah.
like even with like little like their friends, like like they had a little argument, they're mad, but 2 seconds later they're playing around again like nothing happened.
I forgive you. And
Like
that's it.
and it's
Let's hug it
so,
out.
Literally, it's so cute. Like I don't know, like it's just something that we have to like constantly remind ourselves about. Like the consequences are gonna be good or bad, but sometimes we just have to do it. Just
Yeah.
trust and do it. Our last and final point is the fact that they're not prone to pride or hypocrisy. Like they don't care about what's going around. They don't care about the way people think about them. They don't care about the way like people are talking about them, or if people are talking about them. They just are.
Yeah.
They don't care. They do things because they want to, or because they trust someone and then someone told them to do it. Like they don't care that some guy over there in the corner and just like talking bad at them. They don't care. They just do. And I personally, like, I'm one to fall into the anxiety, the overthinking of like, oh my gosh, what are they thinking? Like, if I do this, what are they gonna say? If I don't do this, what are they gonna say? Like, kids, they don't care. They just do.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah.
But like, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like once you grow up, like going back a little bit into what you guys were saying, like, I forgot. But, like, I feel like growing up, we just become closed off, and then we're kind of like, we start overthinking, and we start, like, thinking, oh, that was what it is. Like, we stop, like, trusting everything, because we kind of, like, experience stuff, and then we, like, grow out of being a kid. We grow out of trusting everything that everyone says. Like, once that starts coming, you're kind of, like, closed off to that.
Yeah.
And so I think that, like, in your relationship with God, it, like, takes a lot of, like, trusting other people and, like, learning how to forgive them and learning how to let it go, so it doesn't tie you down, you know? And so, like, how you're saying, like, we have to, like, go against that growing up and against that, like, okay, this happened to me, but, like, God has something better, you know?
Yeah.
And then with the
Hypocrisy.
yeah. Hypocrisy. It's the same thing. Like, we grow up and we think, like, oh, these thoughts of anxiety, like, oh, what could they be thinking about me and stuff. But, like, children, like how you were saying, like, exact same thing you were saying.
They don't
Yeah.
care.
They don't care, yeah. And so I think that, like, we just have to go back to being a child. Like, it's what the verse says. And then I feel like we'll become stress-free and we'll learn how to trust more and forgive more. And that'll bring our relationship closer to God.
And I
Yeah.
feel like this specific point, it's modeled in Jesus a lot, because all the religious leaders, everybody, like, they had something to say, whether that be negative, positive. They had something to say about Jesus and about what he was doing and about his ministry. And a lot of the times the disciples were like, does that not bother you? Like, they questioned Jesus and questioned why it didn't bother Jesus, but Jesus didn't care. He was so grounded in himself, and he knew that what he was doing was for a greater purpose, and he knew that God had a plan and that God was ultimately leading everything, that he didn't care what everybody else was saying. And it's so important that, like, if I want to be like Jesus, I have to start forgetting about what the world is saying and start listening to what God is telling me.
Yeah.
There's also, like, a specific story in the Bible where, like, Jesus is talking, like, to a group of people, if I'm remembering correctly. He's talking to a group of people, and a bunch of children run up. And all these children are, like, oh, like, they're, like, talking to Jesus, playing around Jesus. And the disciples were like, hold on, like, these kids need to go. Like, they need to leave right now. Like, they can't be touching Jesus because that's, like, oh, my gosh, like, what are people going to say? Jesus was like, nah, bro, like, chill. Like,
yeah.
And, like, it leads in so perfectly to this verse. Like, just sometimes we just have to forget about the world.
Yeah.
Forget about what our image looks like when our image and our identity is ultimately in Jesus and God.
Yeah, especially at least tying back to the whole thing, like, scared of what everyone, like, thinks of you, especially in a new environment. Like, we're in college now. Like, we are not seeing the same. Well, you got a 7 also, you definitely are, but I'm not seeing the people I used to see every day.
From the people that I used to see, I have one person in my class that I used to see every day, like, used to, and, like, that was, like, 2 years ago. So, like, I don't.
Yeah.
Relatively, everybody's new. Like, I don't know people. I don't see them every day, but, like.
And, like, now we're not kids anymore, so it's actually hard to go up to someone and be like,
it's so
hey,
hard.
like, what's your name? Like, it's so hard and awkward to do now. And we're so, at least for me, my first day of school, at least, like, I didn't really care about what people thought of me because I wasn't going to college to make friends. I'm going to college to go to school. But, like, my first day in the class, I was, like, I sat in the corner. I actually love corner seats, but I sat right in the corner. And I was, like, I put my best fit on. I was so scared. I was so scared of what people would think of me. And then I ended up finding, like, a bunch of friends in that class. But, yeah, I was so scared of what people thought of me. But, like, as a kid going to school when I was younger, I would not have sat in the corner. I would have sat in the very front of the classroom. And I would have talked to everyone around me. And, like, it's so crazy how life changes like that. But especially, like, getting used to a new environment, you're so concerned about what everyone else is thinking about you. What kind of first impression you're going to make. What are people going to think of you? Are people going to see Jesus, like, through you? And that's, like, that's so hard. Like, yeah.
It's so funny that you mention it because I had the same thoughts going to school my first day. I was like, I have to wear my best outfit. I have to do this. Like,
And my hair has to be washed.
My hair has to be washed. It has to look nice. I'm pretty sure it rained my first day of school. And, like, I was like, I have to get to school early so I get a good parking spot and, like, this and that. And, I literally did sit in the back of the class because I was like, I don't know these people. I don't know my teacher. Like, I'm scared. I actually got to school early because I didn't know where my class was. And I was like, I don't want to look like that one kid that's lost and walks into the wrong classroom. Like, all these thoughts were going to my head when everything was just chill. Like, my teacher was super chill. Like, she was super nice. Like, the people in my class, like, they're intimidating. It really is intimidating, especially because college, like, you never know who's going to be in your class.
Yeah, because it's, like, super mixed. Like, I have a really old lady in my class. She's super nice, though. But I have a really old lady in my class. And then there's this one kid. He looks like, I don't know if he still goes to FLA. But there was this one, like, junior. He had, like, a bunch of pimples on his face. They look like the same person. I don't even know how old that kid is, if I'm being honest. But, yeah.
It's crazy because I met a kid, and, like, I had to talk to a kid because we were put together for a class. Yeah. And he asked me, he was like, oh, like, how old are you? I was like, oh, I'm 18. And he was like, no way. I thought you were, like, 22.
Oh.
And he was like, yeah, because I'm like 20. I'm 21, turning 22, and I thought you were about my same age. And I was like,
what class is this?
It was my biology class. I was like, you look like you are straight out of high school.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's crazy the way that, like, sometimes we are so built up in our heads, and we're so stuck in our own minds. We're so stuck on, like, thinking about other people, when in reality, like, we're all scared. we're all experiencing this as either first time or, like, we're going through the same things. Like, a lot of the times we're so scared about what everything's happening when the person next to you is going through the same thing. Like, everything's going to end up okay.
Yeah.
And, like, it's so, like, especially in your walk with Christ, it's scary. Because you don't know what's lying ahead. Sometimes it's really hard to trust in God, like we talked about a couple episodes ago, like, it's hard to rely on God sometimes, but sometimes you just have to trust. Sometimes you just have to, like just forget about the world, forget about people, forget about what's going on, because at the end of the day, they're going to become a distraction. And they're going to end up being something, like, stuck in your way that's going to stop you from, like, unleashing your potential.
Yeah, basically. And, like, showing God through you. Because, like, I don't know. Sometimes I get, like, it didn't really happen to me that as much as it did, like, in high school, but I would be so concerned of mirroring the people around me and wanting to fit in with them that I would fail. I would not fail, because people, like, a lot of people can actually tell that I'm, like, a Christian or whatever. Okay, not or whatever, but, like, Christian or Seventh-day Adventist. Like, I don't go up to people and be like, I'm SDA, by the way, because not a lot of people know what that is.
Yeah.
But, like, people can tell. But, like, when you're so stuck on what everyone else is going to think about you, you're quick to reflect and mirror what people around you are doing. So it's like that's when people can't really see who you're actually trying to represent in your walk with God. Because your walk with God, somebody is going to be able to notice it in you. Or somebody will see it. Or most people will see it.
That's the whole point, that people will see your light.
Yeah, exactly.
So people will see God's light through you. And, like, ultimately, the only person that we should care about, and, like, not care, but the only person we should care about what they think about us is Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, he's the only one that has, like, a valid opinion, because he's the only one that's just, and he's the only one who's, like, true, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, he's not going to judge you based off your action. He's going to judge you on who you are.
And he's going to be there at whatever time.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes we, like, get these, like, perceptions of ourselves and other people that, like, we hold on to them so tightly, like, oh, but I just have to be this certain person so that I can, like, be seen as this way. And so we hold on to this, or, like, I won't be able to ever do that like them, or something like that. And we hold on to that. Or, like, oh, my parents are, they never went to college, so how could I make it? Something like that. And so we hold on to these perceptions that are probably, like, fake. And we hold on to them so tight that, like, we're limiting ourselves. And so, like, children don't have that. Children are not worried about, like, oh, I can't do that. Like, if anything, they're gonna be like, I can do that. Like, if like I can do anything, you know. Like,
and even if they say they can't, they end up trying, and then they're like, yay,
exactly.
You know?
They end up trying. And I feel like we have to, like, let go of that as well. Like, as well as, like, perceptions of God, because sometimes we'll put God in a box and we'll be like, well, God is supposed to do this and this and this, but then when it doesn't go that way, then you're like, you know, you're disappointed.
You get let down.
We have to, like, let go of the expectations of God. And then with other people, we have to, like, let go of, like, what we care, like,
what they think of us.
Yes. And then another thing that I've been thinking about lately is, like, I feel like a lot of the time we worry too much about ourselves and we don't worry about, like, other people. I don't know if it's, like, even, like, ties into this, but, like,
it does.
I feel like lately, like, let's say you have a friendship with someone and they kind of, like, start acting weird. You're like, why are they acting like that towards me, you know?
Yeah.
And you make it all about yourself. And you're like, well, I feel like I'm hurt and I'm disappointed and I. And then you realize, like, something bad is happening in their lives. And you're like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
I was thinking so much about myself that I didn't, like, notice that this person was probably going through, like, something and I could have been a better friend.
Or we didn't
so I
think to check up on them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know?
And so I think children, like, I don't think they're so worried about, like, oh, but I feel hurt. Like, I feel
they
like
don't really care about what's going on, like, in their heads. And, like, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember, like, I was, like, when I was back at Fleece, I, like, as a middle schooler, like, you would see all the little kids, and, like, when they would come, or even at, like, VBS, when they come up to you and be like, teacher, or, like, miss, like, my friend did this, and, like, my friend got hurt, or something like that. And, like, it's the way that they care for others. And I feel like sometimes we're so preoccupied in, like, what are they thinking about me, but we don't think about, like, how are they doing. Like, sometimes we have to shift our mindset, which is really, like, what all this is about. It's, like, shifting your mindset to think like a child, to worry about other people like children do. Because, like, a child will be just as happy, like, if they see their friend happy, they'll be happy too.
Yeah, that's
they
what
feed
I mean.
off of that energy. And, like, it's important to, first off, surround yourself with people that emulate what God is and, like, what God wants us to be like. But also, like, know, like, you should be God to other people and worry about other people. And, like, be like a light to them.
Yeah, like shining God through your actions, just like a little kid would. Like, same way little kids always try to mirror positive behaviors and try to build their friends up. Like, sometimes, like, kids would be like, hey, like, he did this to me. Yeah. And then you're like, okay. And then you talk to the kid, tell them to apologize, and they're good off with their day.
They're best friends again.
Exactly. So it's so easy for kids to put aside negative things that happen in their life. And it's like, why can't we do that? Why do we get so stuck on the negative feelings, the things people have done to us? Like, it consumes us, and we forget to think like children. We forget to remember that God has a plan for us. We forget that God isn't purposefully setting these things up to build us down. He's only giving them to build us up. And I feel like, especially when it's saying that we should think like children, have that same motivation to become better people like children do. Children, like, sometimes you do have to nag them to apologize even when they don't think they did something wrong. But once they learn from that lesson, it makes them the person that they're meant to become. Yeah. So it's like, when we think like children, we need to be ready to accept, to learn from our consequences. Keep that same drive to show a positive, like, attitude. Like, most kids are positive. You don't really see a kid that's negative unless something negative has happened to them. Yeah. Kids are typically like, okay, yay, I'm gonna go back to school and see my friends. You know?
Like, we've been imitating children.
Listen. Kids have high-pitched voices. It's fine.
Yeah. And it's like, kids are always so positive. So it's like, we should be positive and show God's light, but show God through us in that same positive way children do. Like, children can make anything positive. So we should be able, especially when we see people going through a hard time and doubting God, we should find a way to show God's light in a positive way to build each other up. Yeah.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts?
That God's light, it keeps reminding me of the song, I'm gonna let it shine.
Listen, little kid songs, they're bangers. Like,
right? Like, they seem so simple, and then now that you're older, you know what it means. Like, this little light, like, you're showing God and it's through like you.
And the little hand motions, like okay. Like, they make me happy. And, like, sometimes you have to put yourself in a little kid mindset, like a child's mindset, and, like, put yourself in their shoes sometimes. Because at the end of the day, it's like, it's what God's telling us to do, so why not do it?
And let go and let God. Same way little kids let things go, let their parents teach them, let their parents tell them what to do. It's the same way that we should trust God and his plan and the things that he's bringing forward for us to overcome and do. So, yeah.
Anyways, it was a little bit of a shorter podcast, I think.
We're on a time crunch, guys.
Maybe not. But if you have any other thoughts, any other things you want to add, if you like our setup, please let us know in the comments below.
We're on episode 7, so you guys don't have that much catching up to do. So go ahead and watch all those.
Go ahead and watch them while we're on episode 7. Please watch them. Let us know what you think.
One every single day of the week.
Yes. But yeah, I think that's it. Subscribe, and follow us on Instagram, and
we'll be changing our posting date. Sorry, guys. It's still kind of undecided, right? Friday.
It's a secret.
We'll let you know. If you follow our Instagram, you'll have the newest updates. So go ahead and do that, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yes. Bye. I started choking mid-episode. You saw me drinking my water. Thought I cooked. The test cooked me. Because some old lady in my class, she was like, haha, you're cute. Do you have any kids? Definitely spinning game. And he was like, if my cats count as children. And I almost lost it. Hey, guys, guess who's sick on another podcast? Me.
Again.
How do you get sick all the time?
My brother goes to Felice.
I asked her the same question.
That's your answer?
That is my answer. When I went to Felice, I was always sick.
She just has a terrible immune system.
I'm allergic to Forest Lake Education Center.
I sucked up all your dust from your plant.
Good. Then you can sound just like me. You guys haven't said any. So you're gonna get yelled at by your dad, and she's gonna get yelled at by hers. You know what my dad's gonna yell at me for? Coming to school in church in slides. That didn't work the way you intended it. You have to really
Ew. Can we just start? It still didn't work.
I don't think I swallowed right. Oh my God. Okay, I'm sorry.
Did it work, guys?
A little bit.
Ew.